So let's commence today with a few questions. But foremost, a request. So if we could get everyone to just take a look at the outfit they're wearing, the shoes that you put on today. And if you're ever like me, you might wonder who made these clothes. Well, ever since the birth of fast fashion, the connection between the person who made the clothes, our creator of clothing, and us the consumer has now become very distant. This gap has contributed to a lack of accountability and transparency in the supply chain. With the help of urban trade and globalization, we now have a linear supply chain, and that means we take, we make, we use, and we waste. So that's something very common that we do nowadays thanks to our usual supply chain. However, I'd like to take you on a journey today with me, a journey through the world of fashion. So even if you're not sure what fashion is, if you feel like you don't have a good sense of fashion, don't worry, this talk might just inspire you for that. So, we're going to talk about how you can be a change maker, a hero for a better future tomorrow. My name is Adeline, and I love fashion. But after learning the detrimental impacts of what fashion has on the environment, I had to pivot my idea a little bit. So to give you a little context, let me bring you back to who I was. So I am a second child. I was born as a second child, and if any of you are a second child, or have older siblings, or a bigger cousin, you know how it goes. You get the gently used clothing passed down by them once they outgrown it. So what I do with them? Well, you can say I add on a little glamour to the clothes that I get, right? So I'll personalize it a little more, and by the tools that I use is my glitter glue. So I was a Picasso of my time. And then when I joined my sisters in college, we were really budget savvy. What we do is we'll buy one piece of clothing and share it on different occasions. Really a smart hack for any of you who wanted to be a little bit more fashion forward. My grandma was a master of the sewing machine. I watched her sew and often would help her loop through thread through the needles. And that was my first foray of the fashion industry. Fast forward to today, we know and we are aware of the detrimental effects of fast fashion. It's one of the most polluting industry in the world. And because of what fashion is today, we become a throwaway society. We are now we have a disposable culture, as I said earlier, on how we just use and throw very frequently. Think about the coffee that you had this morning. It possibly came in a disposable cup. And the coffee cup now is probably on its way to the landfill. Or even that transparent plastic bag where you put your curry puff and your kueh inside. So that's probably on the way to the landfill as well. And guess what? It might still retain in the landfill for thousands of years to come, right till your children's are arriving, right? So a little impact on the fashion industry. It actually contributes to 10% of the global carbon emission rate, and that's more than the two biggest pollutant industry combined, the aviation industry as well as the maritime industry. To put things in context, how many of us here own a piece of clothing, a t-shirt? I bet most of us do, right? We are wearing somewhat of a garment today. So it takes 2,700 liters of water to actually make one piece of cotton shirt. And that's enough of water for a person to drink for 3 years. So could you imagine how much water does one t-shirt use up? So the next time you want to toss out your clothing, just remember that as well. So more into the fashion perspective. We now purchase 3/4 more than what we used to in the 90s thanks to fast fashion, where clothing are a lot more disposable, a lot cheaper as well. But of course, that would cost something. That would cost our environment, that would cost our future, that would also cost the social impact of our society today. 3 out of 5 clothing are being tossed out into the landfills and bin within just 1 year of use. So within 1 year, you imagine most of the clothing in this hall right now would be in the landfills. And that is estimated to increase by 62% in the year 2030. So right now, I'll bring you to space. So this is a picture taken in space. This is one of the biggest landfills in Chile, and you could actually now see a huge landfill filled with garments being thrown away in this landfill out from outer space. Speaking of space, I'll bring you on a journey of where your clothing has been. So, just to produce one t-shirt, your clothing would have gone through at least 5 other different countries. In the pursuit of cheaper manufacturing, in the pursuit of cheaper materials and supply chain, the process of clothing has reached up to more than 20 processes, and that in a really short period of time. And that is a really huge impact on our environment. So, your clothing might boast to have more air travel time than most of us do, and your closet undoubtedly have more air miles than most of us do. So what does this mean, right? Being an entrepreneur myself, what I thought was success is really important when it comes, being determined is really important when it comes to being successful. But what I realized is life is made up of millions of the small moments, and opportunities comes to those who are prepared. Well, true opportunities comes from true preparation. So preparation then truly lies on all our small daily actions. And that means that all of us here have the opportunity to be change makers and heroes for a better future and a better planet. So this is how I start my social enterprise Fixed Stitch. I wanted to bring the connection of people and the planet a lot closer. So when you think of the concept of farm to table, something we are most familiar with, you think of the fresh food produce, right? So you think of how it's being produced from the farm and it ends up to the table and you consume it. So it tells you exactly where your food has been, how is it made, and what is it made up of. I want to challenge us today to think a little bit as well about field to fashion. So think of how fashion is very much alike like food, right? It's derived from natural resources as well. Think of your silkworm, think of agriculture, think of fossil fuel. These are things that made up our clothing. Without agriculture, there will not be any cotton fields. Without cotton fields, there will not be our cotton t-shirt today. So everything is really pretty much interlinked. And therefore, every action you make today has a big impact towards tomorrow. Climate change usually is discussed in the major industry, like aviation, like logistics and things like that. But really, the biggest change that we can make today is in taking smaller steps and smaller actions into achieving what we do better for our future tomorrow. Just to give you a context on a polyester shirt or blouse, or the journey of a polyester clothing. So polyester is made up of a combination of fossil fuel. So what does that mean? So that means it contains microplastics. So every time when you wash a polyester shirt, you're actually infiltrating plastic into the water, and that would then end up into the food supply chain, and that would end up in our body as well. So essentially affecting our health. And when you toss out your polyester dress, that ends up in your landfills. And what does that mean? That means it actually contributes to pollution, carbon emission, and of course, increasing the amount of landfills. So apparently, we actually eat up to 1 piece of credit card a week now in our food just by consuming food, and just because of the microplastics in the water and soil we have today. Fun fact. So I realized that we can all actually make a difference in this. There's actually a solution in this problem, and that's by just adding a little link to our current supply chain. And that is what we call a circular chain. So circularity is really not just a buzzword. It's thinking about the longevity of your clothing. It's thinking of how you could preserve it. It's thinking about how you could continue wearing it for the next decade. It's thinking about choosing and purposefully choosing your clothing when the next time you shop. We just finished our 11/11 sales and we have Black Friday sales coming as well. These are two sales that within a year, your clothing, 3 out of 5 clothing would then end up in landfill. So think a little bit more about where you could contribute in this supply chain. Therefore, repairing and tailoring plays a big role in this vision through the small little actions, through the impacts that we make with the clothing choices that we make as well. You see, clothing are not just a piece of fabric that helps protect us. It holds memories, it holds stories, it holds experiences as well. Think about like your first jeans, possibly the one that you wore on your first date, on the first day to uni, on your first interview. They hold stories, they hold memories, they hold experiences as well. So, the next time you want to toss out your clothing, look intrinsically into your closet. See what does it mean to you. You can be a hero of tomorrow just by making better choices for your clothing. So you may ask me now, right, Adeline, what can we do? How do we be a hero for tomorrow? The answer is actually quite simple. You could start by just making small changes in your options today. So think about how you could take a little step forward, just a little step beyond the boundary of your little red circle. So think about how you could support maybe sustainable brands a little better. Think about how you could make sustainable choices more. And lastly, of course, you could always opt for repair and alteration when your clothing needs a little love. So instead of tossing them out, think of ways you could create circularity within the supply chain. In the great words of Van Gogh, great things are done by a series of small things combined together. That just tells us that all of us here has the impact to make the world a better place. It's probably the moments of sharing a closet with my sisters. It's probably the moment of threading that thread for my grandmom. It's probably that crafty moments I have with my mom, or even the nature-loving experiences with my dad that have crafted the connection I have with the planet and the people as well. So my challenge today is for us to step beyond our boundaries a little. The next time when you open your closet, I hope that you would think a little more beyond what your clothing means to you. It is not just a piece of fabric, it's not just the brands or the logo, it's really beyond that. Think of where it came from. Think of how it potentially would end up, where it would be in the years to come. The next time you like to purchase something, think of that as well, right? As if like you're entering into Narnia. Think of how it came from the fiber that's made to each stitch that is made. You can be the next change maker as well. So I hope you join me on this journey to repair your clothes and repair the world. Thank you.